Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Digital for Everyone, the weekly live stream that tries to demystify the digital world one episode at a time. Tonight we have with us Darien Sobion, and he is the managing partner of 10 Caribbean. He's going to be talking to us about digital strategy for entrepreneurs. And I think that's going to be pretty powerful because a lot of people have become entrepreneurs in this time, whether they wanted to or not. It might have been much sooner than they had planned, but they jumped off and they started. And it's not a criticism, but some people are much better at their entrepreneurial job than their digital strategy. And it doesn't come naturally to everybody. Just want to shout out to the people joining in: Kareem, Screwtoy, Paradise 876, Aries, Alexander Phoenix, welcome. 10 Caribbean just joined, and that will be Mr. Darien himself. So we're going to have him in here. Wave hello to Darien as he joins us. Right. Darien, how are you doing?
I'm very good. I hope my lighting is better now.
It is. Things are good. How are things on your end?
Very good. Very excited to talk to you. Strategy for entrepreneurs is key.
I'm glad. I think it's something that I've never actually touched on so far in the show, and especially this year, a lot of people who might have had the entrepreneurial bug or the gene kind of got pushed over that line to say now you don't have a choice. And
it's exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, exciting is one word, sure. I have a friend now. He shall remain nameless, but he's a really, really good creative, but he's not good at his digital strategy. And they start I take it for granted because I do it every day. But I look at stuff that he's doing, I'm like, man, come on, that's easy. But I realize that there's a ton of chefs who've started home delivery, cooking, and stuff like that. And the gulf in digital experience that you see is just, amazing. So I'm glad that we're talking about this today.
Right.
Guys.
I think I actually approach it from a unique perspective too, Aaron.
Okay.
Well, like you, so I run my own agency, so I develop digital strategy for our clients. But then I'm an entrepreneur myself, a creative entrepreneur. So I'm developing digital strategy for our company as well. So I have seen where we have slipped up as well. So I'm hoping I can use some examples from 10 to kind of help people feel emboldened.
I mean, experience is one of the greatest teachers, right? Yeah. So, guys, let me tell you a little bit about Darien. For those of you who don't know him, but based on the names that I'm seeing joining in, I think your fan club is definitely here.
Yeah, I think it's my people. That's what I was saying.
Darien is a founding partner and the managing director of 10 Caribbean Marketing that provides digital solutions to Caribbean brands. He's been in the business for about 3 years, and 10 Caribbean has worked with brands throughout the region and the Caribbean diaspora: Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Barbados, Grenada, all the way up to Switzerland, Atlanta, and the UK, and things like that. To give you a little bit of information on what 10 Caribbean does, they specialize in strategic interventions for small businesses, and they provide a full suite of creative services, which include 3D motion graphics, graphic design, photo and video production, digital advertising, and influencer marketing campaign management. So that was a lot to...
Yeah, I was about to say. So, I mean, I would like to kind of focus the conversation on today is really just that it's one of the core strengths that our company has, right? So although we have done 1,000,001 different creative executions, I think what's really critical for entrepreneurs and for big businesses as well is really kind of hammering down exactly what your strategy is. And we've kind of found that to be one of our core strengths over the 3 years in business.
Mm-hmm. So let's
start.
Well, I guess let's start at the beginning, right? Every entrepreneur has to take that first step of, I've made the decision to step out on my own, whether it's on your own or you're doing it as a side hustle or whatever. Where would you suggest they start when they're like, okay, I don't know what platform should I be on? What should Do I need to get a logo? All these kinds of, I mean, let's keep it digital, but what I'm saying is, let's start at the beginning. Where would you say focus your attention?
So, I mean, it's kind of like the conversation that we started having, right, Rob? Which is from the point of view, when you're looking at strategy, whether it's digital or just general brand strategy, you have to look at it in 3 categories. So you're looking first and foremost at what's your launch strategy. Then secondly, you're looking at what your maintenance strategy is as your brand grows. And then as time comes, there would be like campaign strategies that you'd have to develop as well. So if you're talking about an entrepreneur that's now starting, then he's definitely in the launch phase. And I think the priority for that person would be brand awareness. And of course, you will have the constraint of budget as well. So the way that I've always asked persons to approach it is really look at opportunities that you have within your network where you're able to amplify your launch as much as possible. One of the things that we did when we launched 10 is that we actually used 10 different influencers, launched it.
I remember that.
Right, yeah, like somebody recently brought it up with me. It was all like friends that I knew at the time. I didn't pay them anything. I hope none of them are in the room now asking to be paid. But it was an opportunity for us to reach a broader audience. Like I had lived in Jamaica for a long time, and I knew my business was being launched in Trinidad. And I knew that I had to find a niche that would be able to capture attention. What I find is that a lot of persons launch their businesses and they just simply put a page online. They do a couple posts, and then I guess they just kind of like sit in and cross their fingers, hoping that persons will find their page.
They subscribe to that ethos. If you build it, they will come.
Right. And it's not necessarily a league of dreams out there for entrepreneurs. So you have to find a way to actually stamp and make an impact when you launch. And it takes a variety of forms, right? You have to be able to decide exactly what your brand positioning will be, building out the basic building blocks of a brand, which might be a logo, getting your domain, getting your social media handles. But yeah, like really doing a competitor analysis to see who else is already in the space. Really figuring out a way that you can create value for your customers, which is essentially all that businesses should do.
So I think, I mean, one of the things I took away from that is start with your network. The people that you know that are, back when I worked for a phone company, we would call it an FUT, a friendly user trial. So maybe it's a product or service that, we need feedback, but I don't want to just go out to the market and stuff like that. So I'm going to give it to a friend who he's not going to bad talk me, but he'll give me straight, like, listen, I liked it, or I didn't like it, or it needs this, or whatever. So start with your network. Are there any platforms that you would, I know this is broad because every business has its own niches where it should fit, but are there any platforms that you would say, absolutely, if you're not here, you're dead kind of scenario?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
I
don't know how you feel about it. I think YouTube is critical too. Well, as long as you have a website, you're going to do SEO. YouTube is a critical site for you to be on as well. For SEM, not for SEM, but for you to be able to do video ads and everything too.
Fair enough. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree there. I think very few people need a website until they need a website. You know what I mean? And people kind of get daunted by this whole, oh my gosh, I need to have a website and it's so expensive and this guy is costing me, tons of money. I think your brother is giving you a shout out. So
I've not seen it. Global Rasta.
So we are all over, right? Sorry, not all over. We are starting, we're kicking off. We are reaching out to your network, get people to try and your product or service. You are
just one point on just one point in terms of reaching out to your network. I think it's absolutely critical, right, that you try to get that perspective from persons outside of your actual business. And it's something that it's kind of one of the key founding things for us as well, that a great idea could really come from anyone. So I remember, and I spoke to how 10 Caribbean launched, but that was not our intention. Like, it was actually a friend of mine, who was involved in starting the business with me as well, who's in the legal field, who like I kind of pitched her a couple of the ideas that we were going to use to launch, and she was just like, but you're launching an influencer agency and you're not using influencer marketing. Like, you know what I mean? Like and it just took that one person who was outside of my immediate network to shine that light, and then I was able to develop it. So that's one of the things that I think is absolutely critical.
Okay. So not just surrounding yourself with, let's say, yes men, but really having somebody outside who can really give you some perspective. And guys, I want to second that as much, because it's sometimes you're surrounded by all these people who gassing you up and they want to see you do well, but you need somebody who's going to be critical to say, I think this is a fault or a flaw, you know. Obviously you don't want to. I think the best way to sum it up is there's this saying that says, don't take criticism from someone that you wouldn't take advice from.
Right.
So, you know, kind of, you know, you can't please everybody, because God, we know that we see Trini's comment. We could solve world hunger, and Trini's would be like, well, why they didn't do AIDS, or why didn't they do cancer? It never happened.
Or you're giving out doubles and you're like, doubles and you taste good though. Like that.
Right. Why you didn't do alu pies?
Yeah.
So just before we step on from the launch phase, Jules had a question, and I want to address it, even though it sounds ridiculous. Sorry, there are no stupid questions. Jules was asking, what about Pinterest or ICQ? Now, Jules is aging himself there with the ICQ question, but I think Pinterest is a good question, because it's a platform that I don't personally love, but it is a platform that I see anytime you search for images online, Pinterest is what comes up, you know, and it is now almost one of the largest databases of images that are, I suppose, royalty free. Okay. You know, do you have any thoughts about Pinterest as a kickoff, as a platform?
I guess it depends on exactly what type of business that you're in. I honestly think Jules was just asking that question to be silly, but I'll
right.
Nonetheless. It really depends on what type of business that you're in. If having visuals actually helps people get a better understanding of what your business does, then definitely Pinterest is something to consider. And in terms of those other kind of like, I mean, it's weird to call it a fringe platform now, but like I would also even consider LinkedIn as critical, especially if you're doing B2B business.
Yeah,
definitely. Like more and more, it's kind of carving out its own niche as well. ICQ and BlackBerry Messenger, Jules, if you're considering those things, then yeah, you could definitely explore it.
Broadcast for sure. So okay, the person has decided, okay, we're gonna step out. We have my platforms. I've reached out to my network, and I'm kind of growing and stuff like that. So we hit the launch phase.
All right.
So what's next? I know you had brought stuff before, but what's the next step in that? The maintenance phase, right?
So the launch phase, what's critical is that you want to make sure that you get noticed. And then for me, the maintenance phase is really a question of making sure that you're easy to find. So that's when you start getting into the question of making sure that, well, you have a website, that you're connected to online directories, that you're doing SEO and posting regularly. I think one of the things that I see a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, the traps that I see them fall into, is that they have really big content strategies, but then they don't necessarily have the capacity to pull it off.
Sustain, yeah.
Like I actually even see big brands fall victim to it. Like I haven't checked McCann's page for a while, but I know a lot of agencies do it, right? Like they would have this big activation for
throw in shade, right.
But like they would have a big activation for, let's say, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is great, but then like the page would go quiet for 2 months.
Right.
So like that's one of the things that I always recommend. And I mean, like I recently even got a hit about 10 Caribbean, which was like somebody said, but then your content strategy is just that you'll post client work.
Right.
But that's what got us noticed to begin with, like the majority of the work that they had seen. And that's what we have the capacity to do. So, you know, like from time to time, we would do a campaign, like I did one recently for my 3rd anniversary. But we know that we have a strategy that works for us and that we can continue to execute on. So that's one of the things that I recommend. If you're an entrepreneur, please don't do a holiday post. You get trapped. You're gonna do holiday posts for every holiday. Like, yeah, just focus on what.
It's interesting that I did a study recently about holiday posts, and because I'm very performance focused in our strategy side, and they don't do dollar for dollar a holiday post and anything else. The holiday post does worse.
Because it's a barrage of generic messages.
Yeah.
From brands that they don't really. It's not like they stand for it. So it's just like they're putting out messages, and you've seen the kind of work that goes on behind the scenes developing those holiday ads. Like,
there's a lot of effort. I think you touched on a very important point that I recommend to people all the time. Is like find a posting schedule that is sustainable for you. If you know that, listen, I could get maybe one post a week. Cool, do that. Just do that. Don't try to commit to 3 posts a week, 5 posts a week, and then you just overdoing it. Somebody really let Jules out, but he don't get to do a lot of stuff. You say no more happy Corpus Christi. You see, Jules, what Darien is saying is correct. If you start doing it, you can't leave anyone out. But the value of it to a brand, I've not seen a massive return on it. All right, so we kick off with the launch strategy. I know you said about pitfalls in the maintenance, but what pitfalls do you think in the launch strategy do you see a lot of people make it?
Well, I think the one, which is that whole idea that you just assume that you will get noticed or get found.
Right. Yeah.
I think the other challenge that you find, and again, like I'm going to speak honestly about my own brand here. Like I remember when we did our launch, got a lot of eyes on it, and then like cut to a week later, and persons asked me, "So, you're launching a television show?" Or like, so it is a question of being very precise and clarifying your message so that people understand exactly what your business does. Like I think that's another thing. Like it can't just be that you're making noise, you're getting eyes on you, and then as soon as persons start to get an understanding of what your business actually does, then they start tuning out, and then you start getting the followers. Yeah. I would also recommend that for the maintenance phase as well. Like it's absolutely critical that you continue to remind persons
of what you do,
that you provide. I mean, obviously without it being a hard sell at all times, but allow them to have an understanding of the services that you provide. So don't just focus on being noticed as a brand, but getting an understanding of your service offering as well.
It's funny you say that because I've been doing this live for, I don't know, it's supposed to be 30 episodes now. And then somebody messaged me and I was like, what time is your live? I mean, what do you mean what time is my live? It's been Thursday at 8 for, 10 weeks now. But it then rang the bell that like, I need to continue to reinforce this stuff because it's not the same people seeing it. There's no reason for them to care. And I think I just want to make this one point that give people a reason to care, like not everybody's going to pay attention to your stuff. It's important to you, but it's not important to other people.
Exactly.
And that's hard for people to grasp. Like, you mean all my friends aren't going to read this and commit it to memory and not know exactly? So, all right, yeah. So we have the launch, we have the maintenance, and then we're heading on to what now?
Just in terms of creating specific campaigns, depending on certain events. So let's say, for example, you're a clothing company and you decide to do a Christmas campaign. It can't be that you're just going to do exactly what you're seeing everybody else doing in the market. Like there has to be that approach. I mean, so what's key is that you do your research. Then so I guess you could attest to this, right, Rob?
Right.
That strategy development is not really a science. So it starts off with science in that you have a lot of data, you have a lot of information that you can pull down now. So you can see the conversion rates, you can see the bounce rate, you can see how many impressions your posts are getting. But then somewhere after that, you have to develop an actionable consumer insight that actually that can drive a campaign. And that's one of the key things that I tend to see missing when I see campaign development. It's like you've completely skipped the option of what your strategy will be and gone straight to what the creative execution will be. So like this might look really pretty, but it doesn't achieve what your objectives are. And
1000% agree,
Yeah. And I think that's where we were able to position ourselves as well, because again, not to take a shot at the big agencies, right? But
Just somebody else's time.
But I think the big agencies were really focused, were really great at providing a full suite of services, right? Strategic and creative. Right. And they were able to provide those services to big brands. But then what you found is that with smaller brands, they were kind of left to fend on their own. So
right.
Like they might find a freelance creative that's really good at designing. They might find somebody else that can develop captions. It's more execution focused. But then the gap was really in the strategic insight and grounding. And all people will know that, like, you could create a bad campaign from good strategy, but you're almost certainly going to have a bad campaign with no strategy at all.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and I'll try to make this point succinct, but nobody's ever asked me to define the ROI of like a billboard or a newspaper, ad, and I'm just like, those are so expensive, and I think digital for me leveled the playing field because the people who cared looked at the data and said, I only have $100 to spend, so I need to make this $100 work. So if it means that I realize that, okay, I look at the data and it says, you know what, I think my audience is 25 to 55 women, and you realize, you know what, it's really just men buying it for the girl, and they are 35 to 45, take that and make the switch. And you're right, you might realize, okay, this was a bad decision, but at the same time, the data won't lie to you. The data is what it is. These are the people responding to, reacting to. And for businesses, I think the smaller the budget, the more you have to pay attention to the details, And for me, that makes miles of difference over the long term for anybody.
Right, yeah. But I mean, even assessing the data sometimes is a challenge, right? If you're not comfortable with it. But then, like I said, going back to like actually developing that insight. So like, yes, the data is like, that's the science side of it, right? But then somewhere in between that, you have to be able to like use a little bit of intuition to develop that insight that makes sense.
Right.
And then once you've developed the campaign, you kind of like go back into science now, because the campaign becomes like a theory. You're testing to see whether or not your strategy was right. And based on the results that you get, then you have an idea of what you did wrong. Maybe you overestimated one aspect of this, and you kind of recalibrate as a result. But the data is there to show you.
So Abe soon is doing a question, a follow-up question really. For brands with budget constraints, what are the key things to focus on during maintenance?
Like I say, for me, it really goes back to what your capacity is, right? So you want to ensure that you're easy to find. So that's why I recommend it. And I think I've heard you recommend it as well, Rob. Google My Business. On other online directories, so that it's very easy for your business to be found. And then it's absolutely critical that you have a schedule, content strategy that's manageable for you. And that's where the capacity comes.
Wholly agree. Fun fact, because I was doing some renovations on my apartment and trying to coordinate, getting a plumber and electrician and stuff like that. I put my apartment building on Google My Business just so that I could look for this apartment building, because it's not there. Google doesn't care about Trinidad, but it's guys, Google My Business is free. It doesn't take anything to set up, and you're immediately refinable with location based searching. And in Trinidad, where people search for I need a this or I need a that, it's free and it comes up and it's all your contact information. There's no good reason not to be on it.
It's absolutely critical. Because I mean, I'll take your opinion too, right, Rob? But it's really, it's that top of mind awareness that you want when you're in maintenance. So that if you're going through the customer purchase process, that if they don't know about you, which is the brand awareness side of it, then obviously they can't consider you, and you wouldn't be a part of the purchase process at all. So you have to be that question that somebody is, I'm thinking of a place where I can buy office chairs. These three businesses come to mind so that I can consider them.
For sure. We used to do this research question anytime we were doing a survey for a client. That was because we do it agnostic, so it's unbranded, and we would ask them, what are the top 7 let's say insurance companies when you think of insurance. And to me, that's the biggest indication of where your brand is. You know, if you predominantly you come up as fourth or fifth in people's mind, then that's where you are. You're fourth or fifth. So you want to, you know, ramp up your awareness and work on that. So definitely, you know, you're totally right. Making sure that you're taking advantage of every way to make yourself be findable without, you know, having to shell out millions of dollars and buy billboards and stuff like that. You know, I think to give Jules a little props, and I'm sure you had a hand in it. This is it Czar or Caesar?
It's Caesar.
Caesar, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's the only thing I didn't get from the campaign was how to pronounce it.
Well, you know what's funny is part of the reason why the campaign was "We Are Caesar" was to kind of help people.
Okay.
So that was even part of the strategy.
I missed that part, but I couldn't miss it because it very much an influencer strategy. All of the, you know, quite a lot of people that I knew were on it, and then I realized, hey, you know, it's all part of this one photo shoot kind of thing. So, you know, there's that. I think, you know, hats off to you guys for making that happen. I think it was a really effective campaign.
Big up to Jules and the team.
Yes, Superwoman Lizzie is saying the best isn't the best. The best known is the best. That's true.
Yeah, I love that.
You know,
very well put.
For sure, guys. If you have any questions, I mean, we're coming down to the last sort of 5-10 minutes of it. So if you have any questions, shoot them in the comments. Yeah, 30 minutes passes really quick. So, Darien, if you could recap in, let's say, bullet points, just for everybody who may have joined late. We have the launch phase, the maintenance phase, and what's the final phase? Remind me there.
I think we got into it a little bit, but it was in terms of campaign strategy.
Right. So
if I were to bullet point it, it would be for launch, it's absolutely critical that you get noticed. In maintenance, it's absolutely critical that you stay noticed and are easy to find. And then for campaigns now, it's a question of differentiating yourself so that you are noticed. So it can't be that you're doing what everybody else is doing, otherwise you'll just get lost in the mix.
Okay.
I don't know if that was too quick.
No, that was fine. I mean, entrepreneurs don't have a ton of time to write down a million things, so that is key. You know, being noticed. If you're not top of mind, you know, you're not gonna get called. I think it's really key. It's interesting to see. I mean, I'm sure you see it as well on Facebook when people go, I'm looking for recommendations for who does this. And people will start listing people, you know, and then you realize that, hey, you know, 5 or 6 people have recommended the same guy.
Right, yeah.
That I mean, studies have shown it, that is the best form of marketing. If you can get people to say, I'm willing to recommend you, you know, and they do it, huge impact on things.
But I mean, that's the way that we've gotten all our business, right? Like, I mean, I know Jules has been very active. Like, I'm not even looking at the comments, but he played a huge part in our success. In that, at the time that we launched, they happened to also be looking for like a social media agency.
Right.
And the work that we did for Caesar's Army, it literally became that event companies across the Caribbean and Caribbean diaspora were just like, whatever you all did for Caesar's Army, could you all do that for us? And that's how we traveled. Like, we went from, it was a company in Bermuda. I know the guy said he would join, and I'm not sure if he's there. To a company in St. Lucia, to multiple companies in St. Lucia, to St. Kitts. So, like, it really boils down to, if you're providing a great service, people will recommend you. Like, there's no strategy for that. Like, it's just a question of doing a good job.
Definitely, for sure. I mean, guys, we're assuming that you're going to do a good job as an entrepreneur. You know, all of the strategy in the world can't help you if you're rude or you don't show up on time or you don't produce. You know, it's one of those things where it's under promise and over deliver.
Definitely.
Louis just commented, he said, great points, thanks for the easy rundown. Actually, Louis will be joining us for next week. He's actually going to talk to us about quick pay or QKYC, but he's talking about know your customer protocols. It's a very interesting thing that they're kicking off. So welcome, and a little teaser for next week, guys. But Darien, thank you so much for your time. This was great. I hope you guys really got from it what you needed. If you don't, The replay is going to be live on the channel in a few minutes, and it will be up on YouTube tomorrow. So, guys, Darien, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. And big up to everybody who tuned in. Big up Brian, big up Justin, big up Jules.
Big up the whole Sobion family who came.
Big up Samantha.
All right, guys.